Hello, dear sinceres. So today we're going to talk about the upcoming full moon in Pisces. So this is going to happen on August 31st, 2023 at 1:35 UK time. And this super full moon in Pisces is going to happen at 7 degrees and 24 minutes. And so it will have a Pisces decan and a Taurus duad. The sun has entered Virgo, and its opposition to the moon in Pisces is bringing that nostalgic feeling that we get at the end of the summer, that we don't want the holiday to end, the celebrations to stop. We don't want the nights to get longer and bigger, and the weather to get colder. Soon it will be time for going back to school, for going back to work, for taking care of the things that need to be taken care of, organizing, and going back to the routines of work and daily life. We might be in this super moon, full moon, feeling quite sensitive, a sense of something lost or that we have to prepare to lose. Supermoon is the time when the moon is the closest to the earth and it looks really, really big. And though it brings in a Piscean sign, the romantic, dreamy, fantasy vibes, its proximity to Saturn, so this full moon is conjuncting Saturn, will be calling us back to reality as well. Will be a bit of like a wake-up call. It's the child being told that we have to go back home now from having an amazing holiday in the swimming pool and having all this fun somewhere far away that we traveled to have this holiday, and to say goodbye to all of this fun and pleasure and all the sense of freedom, and now be called to be responsible to responsibility. Saturn calls us always to responsibility, but it's in Pisces, so a part of us still hopes and dreams that perhaps something really magical will happen and we will be able to prolong this holiday period. Maybe Tinkerbell is going to appear with Peter Pan and take us to Neverland. Maybe something wonderful is going to happen that helps us prolong this fun and this pleasure of the holiday period. Pisces lives in a denial of reality in the shadow side. It corrodes with substances and spirits, and this is derived from the Neptune planet. Life lived just in the real world gets heavy, boring, dry. All the territories of Saturn. Reality is harsh, hard, demanding. And why not escapade back to this world of fun and pleasure that we are just now having to say goodbye to? The sun in Virgo is the conscious self, the ego self. Not in so much of a spiritual way, but the one that needs to make the decisions, be responsible, retake routines, check the stock, and if the areas of life, health, work, school, exercise, are all in order. Sun is also the self that can be an adult and take executive decisions. The ego self that mediates between the emotions, desires, impulses, the subconscious and the unconscious, as well as the behaviors we have with others, so that we can function in ways that help us thrive as much as possible with others and with ourselves. The super full moon is this emotional side in us that is wanting to cry a little bit, and with the Saturn near it, we dry the tears and recognize to the sun, the ego self, that the time to play needs to stay behind and life needs to be dealt with. But it doesn't have to be a dread. There is now space to dream about the future, to imagine, to think about projects and desires that we want to see come to fruition, plans that we are continuing with, that we already had planned earlier on. It's now time, with this full moon in Pisces, to reflect, to go inwards, to slow down, to take a break, a pause from all the bubbly energy, to ground ourselves a bit and to find our core center. that permanent self that tirelessly observes in the background the whispers from our soul. Maybe writing a letter to your guardian angel, practicing gratitude, being grateful for all the blessings. Maybe it's time to do a short or long retreat inwards into the silence before going back to those routines. There will be always dishes to wash and food to cook, but no moment ever repeats itself. And how much of our time do we spend fully aware in the here and now, consciously aware of our deeper nature? How much do we remember we are cosmic spiritual beings having a physical material experience that will one day go away and fade from existence? And the dishes, they might still be there tomorrow. Pisces is a sign of dissolution of a matter, the time to recoil, where we feel tired of the play that we are doing on this planet, and we are ready for awakening to a much deeper reality, the one we forgot before we came here. So, with the full moon in Pisces and while Venus is still in Leo, it's great time to make some art, the art that gives us some spiritual or profound experiences, that give us the same experiences that many of the Piscean substances like alcohol and drugs try to kidnap us into. Art that inspires us, that elates us, that touches deep into our souls. And that can be also music, poetry, dance. And we also sleep for a reason. There has to be a period of time where we leave the materiality behind, the material reality behind, and touch the deeper reality we come from. It's really important for every soul. And some spiritual beliefs from some esoteric spirituality do think that when we sleep, we touch our souls, the spiritual world. We know so much about our biology and sciences of matter, but what about the science of our spirit? We can explore the realms beyond the known through our meditation, writing down our dreams, using the sextile of Pluto and Neptune to access our psychic powers amplified with the supermoon, while invoking our spiritual guardian in this period of astral intensity. Maybe it's a good time to honor your ancestors, do a family constellations, and letting go. Letting go of things that are moldy, smelly, and dusty in your life, inside of you, emotionally, that you are holding on to, the resentments, the pain. Saturn brings maturity. When you were a child, you thought like a child. Then you grow and you understand more deeply. Saturn, the ultimate rich-giving planet, finds joy in the 12th house, ruled by Pisces, because wisdom is the ultimate and highest wealth that you take with you when you leave this plane. You will have to leave everything else behind, no matter how much you accumulated it in terms of material gains, of money and jewels and possessions, and even people. They will all stay behind. Only the wisdom that you got will go with you. So full moon in Pisces is that reminder that, hey, let's explore something deeper and work on that ultimate wealth for a while. If you want to bargain with the Saturn periods of your life, when he's there giving you the tough lessons, then wisdom is your ally. The emotions may be exciting, they make us feel alive, but have you noticed that once something deeply makes sense to you from the soul, it doesn't affect you in the same way? So this is the invitation, the sensitivity of a Pisces full supermoon and its conjunction with Saturn. Mercury is trining Jupiter and Uranus, helping with accessing another level of information, to see the truth from lies, to have the right mental attitude, and capacity to organize and structure information. Some truths may come up suddenly that were hidden and come in abundance. Mars is moving to Libra, so maybe time for some peace talks, diplomacy, harmony. Aries, the dwarf planet that is in the sign of Aries, still there with the North Node conjunction, however, calling to justice, fairness. It is interesting thing with planets and dwarf planets past Saturn. They all call us into a cosmic reality. Though they manifest in a more generational level because they move so slowly around the sun, and this is because, as well, if you think about it, the age of a human being, the average age of life of a human on this planet is very short. And for those of you who've somewhat had some touches with esoteric spirituality, it's said that the age of angels, and even the Bible says that, is much, much larger. But then I sometimes used to wonder, how must animals feel? Because their life duration compared to humans is even shorter. And what I mean to say is that these trans objects will either show us the ugly face if we don't understand them, because we are looking at them through very human eyes of limitation. Or once we as humanity achieved a much elevated consciousness, then their deeper manifestation will show up once we are ready to finally integrate them as a collective in our consciousness. Aries, the dwarf planet, this name is coming from the goddess of discord and strife. Basically, she, in mythology, was not invited to a wedding because people feared that she would cause trouble. And that behavior was exactly what caused Aries to plant the seed or apple that started the Trojan War. This conjunction with the North Node is as if we can see the moment Aries places that apple that starts it all. Because, yeah, the Trojan War started when this dwarf planet Aries, well, the mythological goddess Aries, placed an apple that said to the most fairest. So in this mythology, the fact that there is this conjunction of North Node in Aries, Aries is the brother, so the god of war Aries is the brother of Aries, the dwarf planet in mythology. This apple that starts all this war, that says to the most beautiful, to the most fairest. And what happened was that the goddesses Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite, they pick up that apple and they said it belonged to them. They all felt themselves to be the most fairest, the most beautiful. So I feel when I look at this with Venus now in Leo, where Leo is all about vanity in the dark shadow side, we have this Aries dwarf planet conjuncting with the North Node in Aries sign, where it's ruled by Mars, her brother, and the North Node is opposing South Node in Libra, where South Node always tells us where we went too far in our behavior, in our actions, in our investment of energy. We abused that energy. So this abuse of vanity, this abuse of a Libra energy, which, funny enough, the way it was decided who the apple belonged to in this mythology was by picking up a prince that had been hidden was basically believing himself to be just a pastor, and the goddesses knew this, and so they told him, pick which one of us. Actually, Zeus gave him the job to pick which one of them was the most fairest, the most beautiful. In the promises of Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena that they made to him, that Athena said, you're going to always win every war you go into, and the greatest general. Hera promised him, I don't remember, I think she promised him glory and riches, and Aphrodite, clever Aphrodite, promised him the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, Ellen of Troy. And therefore, this war of Troy just began. So we see Aphrodite in Leo, ruler of South Node Libra, opposing, of course, the North Node, which is now conjuncting Aries. And for me, it's like this mythology is happening right now in the cosmos. I kind of want to also speak a little bit about something that came to my attention while I was deepening in this full moon in Pisces, because I think it's related to this conjecture, cosmic conjecture. I personally love psychology, and I find myself admiring very much the work of Jordan Peterson. And I came across this lecture from him where he was talking about Sleeping Beauty. Actually, it's a very recent video. So if you go to his channel, you might actually be able to listen to the whole thing. And he was talking about Sleeping Beauty, as Sleeping Beauty was this overly protected princess that the parents wanted very much to protect from life. And so they did not invite Maleficent, who is the witch, queen witch, who cursed her to death and to fall asleep into the unconscious. And he was explaining how this protection of the parents was a bit of an attachment to this idealized life that needed to be perfect and nothing bad could happen to their child. And in this attempt to protect the child from anything bad occurring to her, they were avoiding this queen, Maleficent, or the malevolence as he calls it. And I thought this was really deep because in Pisces sign, we see a lot of this. And I also believe this to be a part of its shadow, is the obsession. In Pisces, not the Pisces, but the 12th house, which is ruled by Pisces, we get the obsessions, addictions. We get substances that can get us into addiction, lose consciousness, lose ourselves. And I think as well, it's so easy that anything can become a drug. Anything can become an addiction. Even the things we think to be healthy, because it is possible to be addicted to exercise, it's possible to be addicted to certain things that we think are healthy. But once those things start to interfere with the other parts, areas of our life, then you have an addiction. When you ignore your child because you're supposed to be unconditionally loving and not create attachment, and so you're teaching them detachment, for example, by not giving them the love they need when they ask for it, you are becoming addicted to an ideology that tells you that. When we do things, sometimes we, in Pisces, we do certain things in a way that we are so fixated in this idealism, and many times even because this is a house of spirituality, and Pisces is a sign of spirituality as well, but more Pisces talks about religion and talks about fanaticism. Here we can become fanatics of an idea of how life's supposed to be, how God is supposed to be, and we enter in a denial, where it also talks about 12th house, we enter into denial of things, of normal things, and sometimes even to embrace the idealism of a purely divine life, we can reject, we can deny the humanness of people. I personally believe that God is the humblest. He's very humble, and he manifests himself, herself, through the most smaller of gestures, the most simple of things, with an immense power to pierce the human soul. And when we attach ourselves to the idea that God only exists in certain things but not in others, we are also rejecting the astrological zodiacal chart, because the zodiacal chart is not about becoming fixated in the 12th house or Pisces sign. The zodiacal chart is about living a full, wholesome life, where we take into account that every area of our life counts. Please try and be spiritual when you're coalescing with Cancer and almost dying. You ignored your 6th house warnings. Do try and be spiritual when you have children who have nothing to eat because you haven't really cared about feeding them or making enough 2nd house matters money to feed them. Please try and be spiritual without a body, because you don't even exist in this world. So it's, I think, these lessons of Pisces that talk about the dark side of Pisces, the shadow side of Pisces, that as well might be taking part through this story of malevolence, because it's through the integration of duality and of the understanding of both poles of existence, the pole of the divine and the pole that is our density, our current density of materialistic, earthly experience, is to understand through the understanding of those and not the rejection of one for the other, that we can become more whole and more wholesome. So now we're going to do some predictions for each sign. So Aries, full moon is taking place in your 12th house. Very much of what you shared here is going to be your theme for this full moon. Taking a pause to meditate, reconnect with your soul, your ancestors, to let go of what's not useful and let yourself fantasize a bit. Reconnect with the arts, music, beauty, your spiritual guides, angels, and do some healing. Help others. Be a little bit selfless and reflect on your past lessons and maturity. Detox, exercise, and spending time in nature will also be lovely to reset your mind and body. Romance might be a good time for you if it comes. Just take it nice and slow. If you want to make it last, put brakes if you feel tempted to start to give way too much attention to someone you just met. So Aries, you got the archetype card of the Hermit, and it speaks of seeking solitude to focus intently on the inner life. And given that you have a 12th house full moon that we were just explaining about meditating, connecting to the divine, this card seems perfect for you. It also says, devotes all energies to creative work or spiritual practice. It withdraws from society to focus intently on inner life. And the shadow side of this archetype is manifesting as intolerance, loathing, or fear of others, or refusal to help those in need. Taurus. Full moon is in your 11th house, in the place of hopes and wishes, as well as groups and friendships. So this is good for you to find allies for things that you want to see happen in the future, to network, go out there in the world and explore. I believe that people are the biggest resource that we actually have in the world. It's not money, it's not wealth, because imagine if you have all the wealth, all the gold, all the jewels, all the possessions, everything you believe yourself to want, and you are completely alone in a desert island. How are you going to survive without people? And even if you are with just one person, it's still not going to be enough to manage the resources, to manage to build a shelter, to manage a proper shelter, because you're Taurus, of course, to build the things you need. You need other people. So invest in that. Speak to friends if you're feeling disconnected and dry. And this will also be a great time to do a vision board or a film type vision board, to write on a paper what you want to achieve, to structure and making a plan for it. Taurus. So dear Tauruses, you got the companion archetype card, which talks about loyalty and tenacity and unselfishness, providing a symbolic service to a stranger, to a stronger or more authoritative personality. Emotional rather than sexual support helps others focus on their mission. I think this is talking from a companionship, a companion that is more like the sidekick, the right arm, and can be also a consort. Not necessarily a companion in the romantic side of things. And the shadow side of this archetype is manifesting as betrayal, which damages the soul, or as a suppression of your own needs. And this card is so perfect for you, Taurus, because you have the full moon happening in your 11th house. I actually took all of these cards, for all signs. I just asked what would be the best one. It was all done just by chance. Nothing was picked on purpose. But I found such synchronicity that you guys got something that is so connected to the 11th house. So look at your life in terms of friendships and the companionship you provide to others or that others provide to you. Gemini, this full moon will highlight the house of career for you. So now it's time to dream on what you want to accomplish and be extremely practical about it. Check your foundations and organize what needs organizing. The reason I say this is also because we are putting together the beautiful qualities of Pisces, which is to dream, to project to the future, to use law of attraction through visualization and through faith, but also through using the qualities of Saturn by structuring, by being realistic, by making a plan and following it. So dear Geminis, you got the archetype card of the angel. And this also has the meanings of fairy, godmother, or godfather. Now, this card speaks of having a strong connection to the angelic realm, whether this is through art, music, or literature, providing a channel through which angels' presence is palpably manifested. Shows a prominent, loving, nurturing character. And this fairy, godmother, godfather is also about helping someone in need anonymously and with no expectation of any return. Now, you got the full moon in your 10th house, which is usually connected to the career, but it's also connected to how other people look at you, how other people see you. And you having this role as the angel to people around you, or even through your work, whether you decide to do something artistic that inspires other people, or you can provide some help to another person. This has a connection to your 10th house by acquiring a way that you interact with the world around you, where they see you as an angel. The shadow side of this archetype manifests as a claim to be in touch with the angelic guidance for the sake of control or ego enhancement, or acting innocent to mislead others. Cancer. The full moon will come on your 9th house of higher knowledge and traveling. So this might be a time you might feel that you need to organize yourself for travel abroad, or might be getting nostalgic feelings of a country you have been recently or you have been a long time. You might be looking at also your belief system and philosophies and reviewing them. This is a great position for deeper wisdom and seeing things through a higher perspective. So Cancers, you got the card of the King, Emperor, Ruler, Leader, Chief. And the meanings of this archetype card is representing temporal male power and authority, associated with both benevolence and cruelty. Emperor can arise from common society like Napoleon, but the king is usually born to it. So the archetype of the king appeals very much to our inner king, to our inner capacity to rule internally our lives, ourselves, and to have this presence in other people's life, that by us acquiring inner authority, other people can feel that authority. That does not have to be cruel or harsh all the time. It can also be quite benevolent and kind. And I mean, I'm not necessarily religious, but I do like a lot to talk about several religions that I've came across through my life, and Christianity is one of them. And if you're Christian, Jesus is supposed to be the most benevolent being, and yet he's considered a king. And that the reason being because this archetype manifested very beautifully in this being. So the shadow side of this archetype resists criticism, questioning, and challenges to its absolute power. Leo, full moon is in your 8th house. Things might get intense on money belonging to other people that you either owe or are owed. With banks or taxes, you might be dealing with issues related to your psyche. Feel like you might need to talk about some deep things in your psyche with someone, or that it's time to merge your resources with a partner or someone. Explore intimacy. Now, dear Leos, you got the archetype card of the dilettante, amateur. The meaning of this archetype card is a lover of the fine arts who never rises above the level of amateur. By extension, a jack of all trades and a master of none. Amateur applies to the realm of sports or useful arts such as cooking and gardening. Both can alert you to the danger of becoming merely superficial in your pursuits, or losing the love that drew you to your vocation in the first place. You guys have the full moon in your 8th house. And this card does speak very much to the Leo archetype, because not in the sense of a dilettante, but in the sense of Leo being very artistic, very capable, very a love of the fine arts, a lover of the fine arts, and capable of doing many, many different things. Just look at Jennifer Lopez. She's a Leo. And she's involved in many different businesses. So you having the 8th house, maybe this card is talking not just about what is it that you are doing if you have lots of different interests, but in terms of how much are you investing yourself into, that it can be pulling you into many different poles, many different places, because 8th house speaks of, I'd say the 2nd house has to do more with investments, to be honest, because it's how you make money, and you can make money through investments, but some astrologers consider 8th house investments, and to some degree that wouldn't be incorrect. So it could be considered investments that you do. How much are you investing? Do you have, even in financial sense of things, Do you have many different financial investments, and are they working out for you? But it can be many different things. It's basically, what are you being a dilettante of? On the shadow side, manifests as a pretension to having a much deeper knowledge than you actually possess, taking or dabbling way too seriously. Virgo, the full moon will take place in the house of relationships for you, so you might feel the need for emotional security and of a relationship that perhaps you are not getting, or feeling that you may need to give more attention to your partner because you may have been neglecting them, or you may have been neglecting this area of your life. So it's time to get a little bit romantic. It's time to get a little bit practical and do something to juice up that part of your life. Hey dear Virgo, so you got the archetype card of the student, disciple, devotee, apprentice. And the meaning suggests not an absence of mastery, but rather a continual pursuit of intellectual development. He has found a source of teaching, such as a guru or spiritual master who becomes the instructor and spiritual guide. On the shadow side, this archetype talks about the shadow student usually manifests in tandem with the shadow teacher or mentor, avidly learning all the tools of the wrong trade or misusing the knowledge learned, may never move beyond the student role to develop an independent inner wisdom. I absolutely love this archetype card. I'm not a Virgo, but I absolutely love this archetype card. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is very much connected to learning, to being a student, to the kind of early teachings in going to high school. Also, Mercury rules Gemini, connected to the 3rd house, and it rules Virgo, connected to the 6th house. And this has more of a Gemini tone to it. However, Virgos love to learn as well, are extremely intelligent because Mercury exalts in your sign. Also has to do, in terms of the 7th house, perhaps you might want to learn something about relationships. You might want to, I don't know, have kind of some studies in relationships about your 7th house, or even about how to do businesses with other people or have partnerships. Just see if this resonates and what could be attributed to a role of a student in your life. Libra, the full moon is in your 6th house of health, routines, and work. You might get sensitive about your work environment or feel like resetting your body with a detox, fast, exercise as well. This will be a great period to go back into your exercise routine, to any routines you were having. So, very interesting, the card that you guys got for your archetype is about the Don Juan, Casanova, gigolo, seducer, but also talks about sex addict. Please don't take this the wrong way. It's basically what's said about this card. And it's not necessarily negative, because all the cards have a positive and negative side in this tarot deck from Caroline Myss. So what it says is this archetype talks about that it can make us aware of falling into sex role cliche or misusing the power of romantic attraction, an underlying vulnerability, and the power to open a heart capable of deep love can counter its negative aspects. And the shadow side of this archetype is Don Juan represents a man or woman, represents a man preying on women for the sake of conquest alone. And this is not necessarily about being a man, specifically that is preying on women, because women can have this archetype as well. And Libra is so much connected to this archetype. I mean, you guys are natural, charming seducers. People just look at you and fall in love, and they don't even know what hit them. You are ruled by Venus, so you do this naturally. You don't have to lift a finger. But It's so funny because Libra always plays the innocent. Like, they are always with this air of flirt and seduction. And then people fall in love and they go like, ooh, me, I'm so innocent. It's so funny. So yeah, dear Libras, just be careful with your charm power, because it's not that Venus is less powerful than Mars. You guys are a bit of a danger out there for the hearts of people. So just be careful this month. Even though this full moon is happening in your 6th house, just you might want to mind how the health of other people will be going with this card, in this archetype card. Scorpio, the full moon is in your 5th house, so things might get intense around romance, holidays, hobbies you are doing, children with some drama. Should you go for it or not? The conservative part in you is trying to make sense of the emotional part in you and help you make mature, level-headed decisions. Find counsel in friendships and wise people. Dear Scorpio, you got the archetype card of the prince. A true prince is a ruler in training who serves the people he will someday lead, whether in a literal, figurative, or spiritual kingdom. Characteristics of generosity, fairness, compassion, and wisdom should be well balanced. And so this archetype card for you Scorpios, you have the full moon in your 5th house, could be talking about coming in a more royal way whilst dealing with your hobbies and maybe romance. It might be talking about romance, and maybe you want to have this kind of royal presence about you that expresses wisdom, spirituality, and generosity and fairness and compassion. And so for the shadow side of this archetype that you might want to be careful of is that this can manifest as a young man. The archetype is about young men with great feelings of entitlement that uses his position and power purely to advance his own interests without regards for the needs of others. Just find out which one you might be manifesting to the people around you, because Scorpio is a very powerful sign, and if you are very much in the Scorpio kind of archetype, then the shadow is quite potential for you to manifest. But the good thing is Scorpios are the masters of the shadow, and so you have the power and control to manage this the best way possible. Sagittarius. The full moon is in your 4th house, bringing you themes related to family foundations and your stability, as well as things from your ancestry, family, awakening to what was lying hidden in the subconscious. There might be tension and stress with the family, perhaps a sense of wanting to be more emotional, but not feeling that you can actually be that. And could also happen that you might be wanting to connect emotionally with them, but not feeling you getting quite enough. So dear Saggy, you got the archetype of the mentor. Of course you did. Based on a character in the Odyssey to whom Odysseus entrusted the care of his house and the education of his son. It also has the meanings of master, counselor, tutor, and also teacher. And this is a trusted teacher and guide in many forms of art, business, and spiritual practice, and passes on wisdom and refines the student's character. Now, Sagittarius, you are all about this archetype. You are teachers. You accumulate wisdom, knowledge, and you transform that into something that you can teach others very naturally. You go through life always looking at the bright side of life and sharing your highest philosophies, the most divine, highest philosophies with others. It doesn't matter if you're official professor or teacher or not, But this is what you do. Now you're going to have to apply that to your 4th house of family, of father, of maybe even might be situations related to real estate, to home, to your land, your nation. So have a look at that and see how this applies. In the shadow side of this archetype card, the shadow mentor tends to be more concerned with imposing control than imparting wisdom, and does not allow the student to move on to the role of master. Capricorn, the full moon is in your 3rd house, where there can be issues with siblings, neighbors, miscommunication, overwhelm of information. It may also be a theme for small travels, either you or a loved one going somewhere in the same country, doing some kind of, inside country adventure. And there may be news that also might make you feel a bit sensitive, or certain serious and emotional conversations that you might have to have. Just ensure that you think before you speak. So dear Capricorns, you have a 3rd house, a full moon, and this is very much speaking to you, because you might have to act as a mediator. That's the archetype card you got, which also means the ambassador, the diplomat, the go-between. So what I'm seeing in this card is 3rd house talks very much about conversations, talks about information, and talks about neighbors and siblings. So could it be that maybe some people, whether it's neighbors, siblings, even to some degree friends, and this house is also sometimes the house of best friends. Could you be mediating between people, conversations, situations that you are put in the middle? And so what mediator represents is smooth relations between potentially antagonistic groups or individuals, gifted with patience and skill, able to read people and situations. And the shadow side, the shadow mediator manifests in ulterior motives or hidden agendas, working both sides of an issue for personal gain. Aquarius, you will have themes surrounding money, finances, or feeling sensitive about your self-worth, self-esteem, self-image. You may have to deal with issues where you haven't been paid fairly, or someone is not willing to pay what you are worth. Be also aware and careful with any emotional shopping. So dear Aquarius, you got the Rebel as an archetype card, which talks about the anarchist, the revolutionary, political protester, nonconformist, pirate. I mean, if you could get a better card to describe the Aquarius is here, I wouldn't be able to find it. This is totally the Aquarian card. And so, whether politically inclined or an artistic innovator, the Rebel is a key component of all human growth and development. Helps you see past tired preconceptions in your professional or creative work, or to reject spiritual systems that don't serve your inner needs. The Shadow Rebel compels you to rebel out of peer pressure or for the sake of fashion, and to become mired in other manifestation of conformity. May also reject legitimate authority for the wrong reasons. Do I need to say more, Aquarius? This is totally you. Whether we're talking about the bright side, I don't like to say bright side, the functional side of Aquarius, or the most shadow hidden side of Aquarius. This is absolutely your archetype. Now you got it in the 2nd house, so you have the full moon in the 2nd house, and how this might apply to you could be something to do with how you are dealing with your finances, or to rebel against the dark voices in your head that might be mining your self-love, self-esteem, your self-worth, your sense of value, self-worth. Pisces, you will have this happening in your 1st house, the full moon, and this can bring some stress or highlight in how you feel about your body, around your appearance, and the direction that your life is taking. This full moon is calling you to focus on yourself. Let people help you this time around. Go to others. Don't be always the one taking care of everyone else. You also let yourself be looked after. And you can also feel quite emotional and nostalgic, as well as disconnected to some degree. Dear Pisces, we have an archetype card for you that is the Judge. Critic, examiner, mediator, arbitrator. And also means seeks to balance justice and compassion, manages the fair distribution of power in any form, from military codes to marriage vows. And I think this card is perfect for you because you have the perfect balance. So Pisces has the perfect balance in this full moon, with Saturn conjuncting the moon, being that you guys can have the sensitivity that is so natural of Pisces, together with Saturn. Saturn is the judge usually, or Jupiter can also be the judge. Actually, is more connected to Jupiter than Saturn, but Saturn is in a way a judge as well, because he is the Lord of Karma. He is the one that tells you is going to be this way, and you don't have a vote in the matter. Here you have the opportunity to balance that compassionate side of beautiful Piscean qualities with justice, with that sense of justice, fairness, with the sense of doing what's right and not just going with everyone else's opinion and trying to people please and trying to play the victim and trying to kind of get people to feel sorry for you. But also because you're very compassionate and you love to help others, to also have this capacity to judge when this is appropriate and when it might drain you, when it might harm you. The shadow judge manifests as a destructive criticism, judging without compassion, as misuse of legal authority or threatening others through association with the law. You don't need to be an attorney, judge, or critic by profession to identify. And that's it, dear sinceres. I hope you have enjoyed this full moon video for the upcoming full moon in Pisces. And if so, please ensure to press like below, make comments, share with your friends. Also, feel free to visit me at my website, cynthiasincere.com. If you're interested in having a specific reading, I have specialized readings, whether is it about your finances, relocation, your natal chart, predictions, relationships. You can find the reading that's most appropriate for this time of your life. I hope to see you next time. May the cosmos and the stars be with you.